It's tragic for Mr. Jackson's family. As a law enforcement family, it's tragic for us. Our officer is, having a hard time with this as well.
Now, I can't help but notice the similarities between this case and the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case, whereas the person with the gun aggressively pursued the person without the gun, and when an altercation ensued, the person with the gun opened fire. And that just so happens to be the cover story on this month's InfoWars magazine, available at the InfoWars shop. And as always, remember to film the police. I'm Jakari Jackson for the InfoWars Nightly News.
Now, there are so many examples of government corruption working with criminal groups, it makes the head spin. But just today, 2 different articles came out. One in the Hollywood Reporter about Hollywood in the 30s promoting Hitler. So did Time Magazine, for that matter. Our government actually created Hitler along with the British intelligence. But now there's another article out. Bank of England helped the Reichsbank sell its Nazi gold that they'd stolen from Czechoslovakia and others, of course. And that's what the globalists do, going back to British intelligence. They help create the monsters, the Saddam Husseins, the Bin Ladens, the Hitlers. They put the Bolsheviks in, and then they use that crisis. It's not that they ran Hitler, they helped create Hitler. It's not that they ran Mao Zedong, they put him in power. This is all declassified. And then when these madmen create crises, they can take our liberties here domestically in the name of fighting them and have no-bid weapons contracts. It's called full spectrum dominance. Why did the military-industrial complex create Al-Qaeda and then fund them and allow them to attack us repeatedly? Well, they've made $10 trillion since they created Al-Qaeda conservatively on no-bid weapons contracts. They've stolen trillions in oil, and they've taken American liberties. Because we got to spy on the Tea Party, because, gee, they're a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda now. We had to get rid of our rights and kill America and freedom because, you know, there were threats like the Nazis and the Soviets and the communist Chinese and the Bin Laden people. But in every case, the globalists helped give them their start. It's not blowback. It's not chickens coming home to roost. This has been engineered by design. Well, we're going to go to break and come back on the other side with the second place winner of the Operation Paul Revere contest, American Drone. The first place winner was announced today, and those details are at Infowars.com/Paul for Paul Revere, where you can see hundreds and hundreds of great entries on every subject under the sun. And finally, we have the new issue dealing with Divide and Conquer. The August issue of InfoWars magazine is out. You may think you know everything about how they're trying to start a race war. That's great. This is designed to wake up your friends and family to how this divide and conquer worked and how they're trying to railroad George Zimmerman. And it just shows how it is a mass distraction. That's just one of the things it covers. You can buy them at cost or get a year subscription right now at InfoWarsStore.com. And again, I want to thank all the viewers that do make this transmission possible. We'll be right back with the interview portion of InfoWars Nightly News.
Now you can watch the InfoWars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.
Introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. It is the only one that does it, and out of the gates, we have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. Get your Pro Pure with the new Pro One filters today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. All right, we are going to continue with your phone calls. David Knight's coming up to announce the first place winner in the $115,000 film contest, Operation Paul Revere, an incredible success. I want to salute all of you that were involved. We got a lot of other economic news and new emails showing the FEC, IRS targeting conservative groups. Real libertarian constitutional groups like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz. Every day when I watch C-SPAN, I'm now seeing Rand Paul and they're battling the globalists, battling our government funding Al-Qaeda. I was just watching that earlier during a break. He's been on for like hours giving a speech. It's got to be hours. You keep walking by and it's still Rand Paul in there. I'm going to get him back on the show and his dad as well. But the whole point is that there are good people out there. I know Rand Paul. I know he's good. And I can't tell you how good it is to know he's bucking the whole system. And he's got the neocons, the mainline Republicans, the liberals, the socialists, the commies, the foreign banks coming after him. But still, he gets more and more popular. Again, we can turn the tide against this insanity. Now, speaking of turning the tide, I happen to know there are a lot of good FBI agents and a lot of good DEA agents and a lot of good federal marshals and a lot of good people, because they've given me a lot of breaking news that's been national news, as you know, over the years. Just bombshell stuff, Navy SEALs, you name it. But compartmentalization is the word that everybody needs to understand. You can have 90% of people being good in an organization, 95% generally. But it's those top people, just like in a corporation, it's the CEO or the comptroller that's doing the fraud. It's called controller fraud. The people that are at that nexus of a bunch of different info and different departments, they're the ones. And that's where you find the hardcore money laundering, the drug dealing, you name it. But it's not just that. Every vice tends to get run by the alpha criminals. And last hour, I covered BBC and the Hollywood Reporter, how the British government worked to get Nazi gold out. Of course, they got pieces of it. Why do you think they brought over 10,000 Nazis to England after the war and put them in top positions, and 30+ thousand to the U.S.? Because they had all the stolen loot of like 8 different or more European countries. I mean, they had just caves full of art and gold and diamonds and rubies and just thousands of years of loot that they had stolen in those few short years that have been hoarded up in Europe. They even double-crossed the Rothschilds and killed a bunch of them in France and stole their goodies. So it's in the news today that the British government worked with them. Of course they did, because they knew where all the treasure was buried. And then the Hollywood Reporter comes out, the chilling history of how Hollywood helped Hitler. Well, yeah, Hitler was on the cover of Time magazine, what a great guy he was, twice. My grandfather and his dad, you know, they were German. They spoke German, been here in Texas since it started, but they could still speak German. A lot of German communities here. They would play on the main channels in German Hitler speeches on the English channels. And my grandfather's dad was freaked out by it because he was a smart guy. And they knew the German community, who in the build-up to World War II in Dallas and in Austin was having money sucked out of them, threatening to kill their families in Germany if they didn't. These were Germans. These weren't Jews, folks. They were going after everybody. So I know Hitler was bad because I was told about it by my grandfather, okay, William Hammond. Now, continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, that's how evil our government was back then, or elements of it. Prescott Bush and others on record, part of it, running it. And that's where a lot of the Bushes got their original money and came from nowhere to senator and all the rest of it. He was the head of the Brown Brother Harriman. And a lot of the loot went through him to Argentina, places like that. Now, expanding on this, and I'm not even singling the Bushes out. I mean, it was like Hitler was a rock star, folks, for 7 years here in the U.S. I mean, he was on the cover of, you know, gardening magazines and vegetarian magazines and dog fancy magazines. Now, imagine how corrupt we are today. DynCorp, Halliburton have all been caught running child sex slave rings. We're going to show you mainstream news articles in a moment. We've got all this stuff going on. So I see an article on Monday. We mentioned it, but I wanted to get back into it. Nationwide child prostitution sweep rescues 105 kids, arrests 150 pimps from 70 cities, including Atlantic City. And let's show some of these degenerate pimps. Let's type in pimps in a child prostitution raid. I want to show some of these scumbags on screen. But the point is that the FBI talks about what a great job they're doing. And I'm sure these units that were allowed to go after these guys, you know, have done a good job. But I've analyzed it. These are lower level kind of retail pimps with these child sex slaves. But they came out of foster care in Houston, you name it, and they went right back to those. And then we have the reports where a lot of those foster care things are admitted to have child molesters in them. Who do you think gets into all this stuff? And so I just want people to know the rest of the story. 3-day FBI raid rescues 105 children from prostitution and 150 arrested. And then we're going to get Leanne McAdoo in this segment, the next. Then we'll go to your calls, then have David Knighton here. Break down, because I had her just go pull up some of the other news on this today. There's literally thousands of articles. Leanne McAdoo, InfoWars Nightly News reporter. Tell folks about what you've discovered digging into this case.
Right. Well, a lot of the articles really did not highlight the vulnerability of foster children in the sex trafficking sting that took place. 60% of the runaways who are victims of sex trafficking were in the custody of social services. So it's a lot like the girl here that in Austin, just that was raped by the 13 illegal aliens just a few weeks ago. She was in custody of social services. So, and then they just took her and put her right back because, you know, these children, they don't have families necessarily that are, you know, reporting them missing. They're vulnerable. So these are the targets. And so the police, the FBI, they rescue them, but then where do they put them? They put them exactly back in the system that, you know, basically sets these kids up. Here I have a report that an audit found that sex offenders were living and working in foster care homes. The addresses of more than 1,000 registered sex offenders match the addresses of licensed foster care facilities and homes.
Absolutely. That's the Sacramento Bee. I remember about 7 years ago it came out that over 3,000 children were missing in Florida from foster care, and some were found dead in snuff film operations. Even CNN reported on this, and then suddenly it got shut down, and it turned out the director of Florida and his top 3 underlings were actually convicted child rapists. And then I found out the Texas Youth Commission, same deal. The truth is, a cult of child predators has pretty much, it's not just the Catholic Church, folks, they've taken everything over. They've taken, I mean, it's all over the place. And people need to understand, it's not just the Catholic Church. And I'm not Catholic, and I'm not defending the Catholic Church. I found statistically it's even worse in government.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but no one wants to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have the Dying Court and UN peacekeepers who are involved.
Yeah, you've got mainstream articles on that.
Exactly. The Franklin scandal, which was the nationwide pedophile ring.
Republican Party.
Exactly. There were 2 Republican power brokers who used the Boytown organization as kind of like a pedophilic reservoir to funnel these.
And I had John DeCamp and others who blew the whistle on that on years before, and he said, oh, the big nest is at Penn State. On record, it freaked out the media. Years later, it came out they knew about that. Because, by the way, Sandusky was selling the kids to everybody. That's why he was raping children at noon on a Monday in the field house. I mean, that's like an aircraft carrier at noon. I mean, I played football. It's just people are in there 24/7. In the middle of the day, they were publicly raping children. Again, they do whatever they want.
Right.
It's like in England, all these BBC guys are getting caught with kids.
Exactly. And here's a report from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And there is a whole basically just a whole thing about the opportunities for corruption and trafficking in persons. And where they're really drawing it, where it starts, is the corrupt actors are police, customs officers, border control authorities, government officials, parliamentarians. So they know it's
Yeah, let me show viewers on Document Cam this actual UNODC, United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. And it's funny because they're the worst. They're the main movers with diplomatic immunity. And then they report on themselves and get more power countering themselves when the UN aircraft land. I mean, anywhere. They don't just rape the kids. You can type in UN peacekeepers roast children and eat them. And I'm not joking. It will show them roasting 10-year-old boys on spits. They eat them. You don't get, in fact, you've got the reports where men and women in the UN peacekeepers get kicked out because they won't be part of it. You've got the whistleblower info right there.
Right, exactly.
I mean, and I'm saying this, listeners, I'm not joking. I mean, I'm actually, this is real.
Right, it's right here. It says organized trafficking requires systemic corruption. Corruption is central to the success of traffickers, and therefore criminals consider it a necessary investment. So they're bribing politicians, policemen, and they're getting to use the goods, so to speak. So they cover it up, and then they go in and get the little boys and little girls and the women and just turn a blind eye.
You're absolutely right, and it's totally disgusting. We're going to go to break and come back and play a clip from a congressional hearing back when Cynthia McKinney was still there, where she brings up DynCorp running kidnapped women and children, and he doesn't deny it. It's a real case, but then he says they didn't get in trouble.
Right.
And then, boy, they went after her. You can say what you want about that lady. She has courage.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I was loving watching that clip of her. And the last clip of Rumsfeld's face, he's just like,
And then he gets
Totally
then they get into the NORAD stand down. They admit that.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like an hour-long grilling.
Grilling him.
They've got some Dr. Evil guy. He goes, Dr. Chu is the head auditor. What's going on with that? And they're like, we will not discuss it. And they're like, It's like a bad guy from a James Bond movie. I mean, it is just.
He's like, well, Dr. Chu says.
Dr. Chu says. That's just because the guy looks like the bad guy in Dr. No. I mean, it's like, you expect him to have like underground bases with nuclear reactors. I guess he does. I mean, it's like,
Oh, they
it's
do.
like Dr. Evil, man. But we joke about it. And then they talk about deadly vaccines killing people. And they're not denying any of it. Well, yes, they do run giant child kidnapping rings, but we're not going to do anything to them. Yes, we do kill people with that. You know, it's just like.
Right, that was actually when McKinney was grilling him, she's like, well, DynCorp is now creating these vaccines, and they're also, so why are they continuing to be given these, they're known criminals? And he's like, well, I'll just have to look into that.
He goes, well, they were in the penalty box for 1 year.
And she's like, no, they weren't.
The penalty box is they don't get more contracts for kids. And the whistleblower said they pull up and there's like babies and 2-year-olds being loaded on C-130s to be taken to have their brains blown out on camera. I had tried everything. I'd cut back the amount of food I was eating. I was lifting weights and jogging, but nothing was working. My body was literally starving for minerals and trace elements as well as key vitamins. And as soon as I had that, I immediately could eat half of what I was eating previously and be satisfied. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com. All right, we only got a 6-minute segment here, and we're going to finish up with this. There'll be more on the nightly news the next few nights. David Knight's doing a big report on this. And folks, you talk about the hair